Hi, and welcome for joining us today for this class called Immune Support 101. I'm Dawn Franz. I'm presenting for Natural Grocers by Vitamin Cottage, and I am one of their nutritional health coaches. I work at the store on North Academy in Colorado Springs, and I offer, besides doing classes for the community, I also offer free one-on-one nutrition coaching by appointment. So we can sit down for about an hour and talk about what supplements and diet would be really relevant for what you're dealing with your health. So I'm kind of excited to talk about immune health today. It's definitely a hot topic and something that I think that we really have been made to be paying attention to, right? It's really valuable to have healthy immune function. And I don't think that we've really valued that any more than we have in the last 2 years, right? It's pretty important to improve that. And I think a lot of people are reevaluating maybe their lifestyle and diet changes to accordingly support their immune health. So the immune system is really, as a whole, it's quite complicated. But in this class, I'm going to give you kind of a basic overview of immune function and the cells that comprise the immune system to give you a little bit better understanding of it. And then we'll discuss some key nutrients as well as some supplements that can provide support for an overall healthy immune system. Before I get started, I do have to remind you that this class is not intended to diagnose, treat, or mitigate any disease, and the dietary supplements and foods can interact with prescription medications. So just make sure that if you're taking prescription meds, you are informed about any possible interactions with dietary supplements. And I mentioned I work for Natural Grocers, a wonderful company that really prioritizes nutrition education. And that's why we provide free nutrition education in our stores and to the community. And we also support our employees in giving them up-to-date nutrition information too. We really are a health food store that really makes it a point to have high standards. We have high quality standards in everything that we sell, from our 100% organic produce to the dairy and meat and egg departments. We really only do business with farmers that are meeting our standards for quality, that animals are raised humanely, that they're meeting organic or grass-fed standards, and many standards that you may not find at other grocery stores. And we do feel like health, it should be for everyone, and everyone should have access to it too. So we offer everyday affordable pricing on a lot of our items. And if you check out our Natural Grocers line, you'll find great pricing on all of those products, as well as great quality, and many of them are organic, if not non-GMO. We also support our communities. I love to get out and support community events, and we do donate to different communities. And we do have great employees. We really prioritize customer service and really support helping you to find the right either foods or supplements that can help you on your health journey. So to get started with today's presentation, I have a quick question. So regardless of whether you really researched it or not before, my question is, what is the immune system? We talk about it, but really, what is it? Is it A, cells that fight off infections? Is it B, proteins that neutralize toxins? Is it C, barriers against pathogens? Is it D, healthy bacteria living in our gut? Or E, all of the above? Well, if you were thinking that it was E, all of the above, you're right. The immune system is all of these things and more. And so it is something that we really want to pay attention to because it's a valuable part of our health. And so our first line of defense with our immune system, and we often don't think about it, but it is our barriers, our physical barriers, like our skin. Our skin does protect us. Like if we do get a cut, we could possibly get an infection, right? Our skin produces a lot of antimicrobial like lipids that actually protect us from infections. Our mucous membranes are also another barrier. And the mucous membranes line our nose, our throat, our mouth, even our gastrointestinal tract, and our urogenital tract. So keeping those mucous membranes healthy really can help prevent pathogens from getting through those barriers. And then if by chance we do get some unwanted pathogens through these physical barriers, then we have components of the immune system that can kill those pathogens and neutralize toxins. And those are things like antibodies and other proteins that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So before I just go any further, I just want to define pathogen, and as far as when we're going to be talking about that. So a pathogen is the oldest and broadest sense of anything that can produce disease, a term which came into use in the 1880s, and typically the term is used to describe a infectious agent such as a virus, a bacterium, a prion, fungus, virate, or other parasite that can cause disease in its host. So let's just talk about our immune response for a bit. So if our barriers then are compromised and a pathogen like a bacteria or virus then gets through that barrier, we do need our bodies to mount an immune response. We have immune cells that are constantly floating through the body and the blood and residing in tissues that provide defense as first responders. These are usually specialized cells that are built to respond quickly to immune challenges. So these cells are specially equipped to be first responders because they possess special proteins known as receptors on their cell surface and inside the cells. So they're kind of floating around looking with these receptors to see if they can pick up any kind of pathogen. And when they pick up a pathogen, it may combine with that receptor, and if it detects that it is a foreign thing, that is not a healthy thing to have in the body, that cell becomes on alert. So the receptors are called these pattern recognition receptors, or PRRs. So it's a technical word. They recognize patterns in common that are unique to bacteria and viruses. And that includes things like protein, carbohydrate patterns that are found on bacterial coats, double-stranded RNA, and single-stranded RNA. So those are things that would not be normal in the body. And these patterns are recognized. Local immune cells alert other immune cells to the problem by producing inflammatory molecules. So, sorry, my slides are just kind of sitting here for a second. Let me see if I can get it to switch over. There we go. So when a pathogen is recognized by these pattern recognition cells, or these receptors, then our immune system releases inflammation. And that inflammation allows immune cells to communicate with each other. So it is really important. So we have a lot of inflammation that occurs, and that's part of that. And we feel that, right? We feel inflamed. Our throat, our respiratory tract is inflamed. We might feel achy. So that's, another area where we're feeling that inflammation. And that's why we feel sick, which is no fun, but there is a purpose to this inflammation. So then after we have that initial pro-inflammatory response, then we should have some anti-inflammatory pro-resolving signals that happen later on to kind of take care of that and balance things out in the body. But inflammation is important, right? It recruits more immune cells to get to that site of infection and activates them, like phagocytes that eat and destroy pathogens, mostly bacteria. And they're also antiviral cells are recruited there to infectant cells and helper cells too. So there's quite a few different cells with specialized functions that come in response to that inflammation. Inflammation also is in part to make it inhospitable to bacteria and viruses, right? Like we get a fever, our body turns up the heat so that it could make it uncomfortable for those bacteria viruses that like it at a certain temperature, basically trying to burn up the bad bugs. So of course you do want to monitor a fever, but a little bit of a fever is definitely, there's a purpose to it. So it can take, and usually when you go to your doctor says it can take about 7 to 10 days for the cold to resolve. And that's because it takes that long for these specialized cells to kind of be ready to fully fight that infection. So once the specialized cells are recruited by helper cells, then they undergo massive replication to rapidly increase their cell numbers. And this happens in our lymph nodes. That's why your lymph nodes may swell. You might feel swelling like right here and other areas too. And they swell when we're sick. And that's because our immune system cells are starting to proliferate inside of them. And this is an extremely energy intensive process, which makes you tired, right? And so the cells, once those cell numbers have increased dramatically, then they traffic to the site of infection and inflammation and orchestrate their attack on the source of the problem. So this is either done by stimulating other cells to clear that infection, either through phagocytosis or killing of infected cells, or beta cells produce antibodies that then kind of neutralize and help to clear that infection and also make bacteria easier for phagocytes to eat. So over the course of that 7 to 10 days, we should then at the end enter what we call like the resolution phase, where our body starts to repair that tissue that's inflamed. And our immune system should develop a memory to that type of pathogen so that we can mount a response maybe quicker, more effectively the next time we encounter it. So optimally, our immune system works this way where we have an immune response and then we feel better within that 7 to 10 days because we have those anti-inflammatory compounds being produced. But what happens if you don't feel better after 7 to 10 days? And it's not always the case for everyone. We may, the immune response doesn't resolve properly. We still have inflammation and maybe we get a secondary infection. So that's when we see on this kind of chart here, our inflammatory response doesn't kind of come down in a normal manner and it remains elevated. That chronic inflammation over time can start to destroy tissues and suppresses the immune system because it's still stimulating our immune cells when we have inflammation. So if we have chronic inflammation due to these chronic infections or other causes through diet or nutritional deficiencies, there's many things that can cause inflammation in our bodies these days. It can cause our immune system to kind of overreact. And this is kind of a basic description of how people develop autoimmune disease. It's pretty simplified example of how autoimmunity can be triggered, but the immune system has a lot of checks and balances to help it differentiate between self-proteins and non-self-proteins. But if the immune system is kind of overreactive, it can get confused sometimes and start to attack our internal tissues that are healthy because it's thinking that it is a chemical structure similar to a pathogen. So when we have that happen, we have a lot of inflammation produced. So autoimmune disease is not something that maybe 30, 40 years ago was quite as common as it is today, but it is very common for a lot of reasons. Our diet, our stress levels, the amount of chemicals, pesticides, there's many things that can cause disruption with inflammation as well as our immune system. So having the immune system being overreactive can develop into this autoimmune problem. And also we can have, which is kind of a separate but similar reaction, we have food allergy reactions. If you develop a reaction to a certain food that may be healthy to somebody else, it's similar kind of thing where our immune system is thinking that that food is a foreign invader or a pathogen and mounting immune response. Either way, it really can contribute to a lot of inflammation in the body. So let me give you kind of a summary of the immune response, and we'll move on to what are some things you can do to boost your immune system. So just a quick summary of the immune system that we talked about. Our physical barriers are definitely important as our first line of defense in protecting us and keeping unwanted pathogens and organisms out of the body, right? So we want to make sure our gut lining and our digestive lining, our skin, our mucous membranes, and the ear, nose, and throat, and respiratory tract, as well as in the urogenital tract, are all healthy and functioning well. However, if these barriers are penetrated and compromised, then the immune system is forced into action. Inflammation is a major signal of the immune system to the rest of the immune cells, that a barrier has been compromised. And then that helps recruit additional immune cells to the site of infection. So this is a really simplified yet seemingly complicated version of immune reaction. But I think it's fair to say that this is highly organized and highly specialized response that requires multiple different cell types to communicate properly. So there are probably exceptions to everything that we've talked about this far, and I've glossed over many of the molecular details, but it's a basic understanding of the immune system. And given these basic concepts, let's look at what research does show that we can do to support the health of the immune system. And I think that's definitely what we need to think about today. We're not just vulnerable to all of these viruses and pathogens that are out there. We really do have an ability through nutrients to support our immune response. And I think it's really important to know that. So first off, there's a lot of research regarding the interplay between the immune system and immunity, or what they call immunonutrition. So immunonutrition is essentially how nutrition supports the immune function. And this type of relationship is very tightly linked, and so much so that malnutrition is actually the most common cause of immunodeficiency worldwide. So there's such a tight relationship that it would be impossible to cover all of the research on this topic, but let's just instead focus on some very well-established concepts and ideas as far as what we can do to support it. So first and foremost, we have to protect and support our barriers, our physical barriers, right? Like our skin. So to keep pathogens from getting inside and limit inflammation, as well as our gut too, our gut lining, limiting inflammation in our gut. One of the first things that I think of is having healthy oils in the diet. Healthy oils that we consume and cook with can either be beneficial and help with inflammation, or if you're using a lot of unhealthy oils, they can create inflammation. So unhealthy oils are things like hydrogenated oils, vegetable oils, overly processed oils like soy, safflower, sunflower oil. They create quite a bit of inflammation. Healthier oils are like avocados, olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, organic butter, and then fish. Eating fish gives you healthy omega-3s. If you don't like fish, omega-3 fish oil can really help with that inflammation in the intestinal lining and the skin. So getting healthy oils in your diet, as well as getting a good source of fish or taking a fish oil supplement, is definitely a place to start to protect your skin from having too much inflammation, as well as your gut from supporting healthy inflammations in the gut as well. So next we'll talk about some nutrients and vitamins that may become conditionally essential. So they may not be depleted under like normal everyday conditions, but when we are under severe psychological or physiological stress, we might need to replace these in the form of supplements to make sure that we're supporting the body. So these are for supporting the health of our physical barriers too. Like if we have had surgery, or we have had something that really can damage our skin, like burns, or if we're really having problems with maintaining our gut health, we want to look at what we can do to support that. So arginine is an amino acid that is a precursor to proline. Proline is needed to make collagen, and arginine supports nitric oxide production, which helps with circulation and blood flow. So if you've got an injury, you want to get blood flow, circulation, and those immune cells to that injury so that it can heal, and arginine can be beneficial for that. Also, vitamin C and increasing the amount that you intake through supplements have been shown to increase collagen deposition And it is crucial for forming what they call like the triple helix of collagen structure to really reinforce it and give it its strength. So definitely important. Studies have shown that vitamin C supplementation after severe stress or injury results in improved wound contraction and increased collagen deposition. Also, it's been shown in studies where there was a trial they used vitamin C, E, and zinc together, and it showed that it reduced oxidative stress, resulting in healthier skin to protect that barrier. So we also need to protect our gut barrier. That's where we absorb all our nutrients. And so one of the best things to help promote the health of our gut are healthy, good bacteria. We call those probiotics. So getting more of those good bacteria can actually support the health of cells in our gut, and it can limit the growth of undesirable bacteria in the gut. So probiotics as a supplement, or using probiotic foods like yogurt or like sauerkraut, which is fermented cabbage, or kefir, which is also more of like a fermented dairy product, or kombucha. Those are some great foods that you can introduce that give you probiotic bacteria. And with sauerkraut, it's not much, just like a tablespoon on your plate with a meal can really help you. And then we may need prebiotics. So prebiotics are food for the good bacteria. You may notice that if you're shopping for supplements, you'll see that it says probiotics and prebiotics. That means it may include something like FOS or inulin, or sometimes they put potato starch in there, but those are all things that can feed good bacteria. You can do that through diet too. There's prebiotic foods that you can add to your diet. Beans and legumes have great fiber. Cabbage, again, onions and garlic have prebiotic fiber in them. Green bananas actually are a prebiotic that can feed good bacteria. So you can actually buy a green banana flour and add a little bit of that to your diet to support the growth of good bacteria. You like eating green bananas, you can do that too. And then glutamine is an amino acid that really fuels the cells in the intestinal lining to help them maintain their integrity and support the replacement of damaged cells with healthy cells in the gut. So glutamine, usually a supplement form of glutamine is best if you really have if you have leaky gut or some gut inflammation to support that healing. But cabbage is actually, and sauerkraut is the natural source of glutamine that you can get in your diet. So I should also mention that protecting the gut barrier also requires avoiding certain foods, right? Like some foods containing gluten for some people can really cause inflammation in the gut, or avoiding excess alcohol consumption or too much sugar or processed foods. All those foods can really damage the gut lining and create more inflammation. All right, so then we want to also think about the linings of our respiratory tract. Before pathogens enter into the body, they have to get through this barrier, right? And the respiratory tract is lined with a mucous membrane that contains antimicrobial proteins and a substance called secretory IgA. Both of those are there to help protect us. So maintaining the health of those linings are important. So some of the things that you can do to help protect your respiratory tract are zinc. Zinc is really helpful for supporting the health of the immune system in the mouth, the nasal passage, the throat, and the upper respiratory tract. The mechanism by which zinc can influence the duration of the common cold is currently unknown, but the leading hypotheses include that zinc ions interfere with the charge and electrical current in the mouth and nose current, and that makes those barriers harder to penetrate. Zinc also can boost normal immune function, and it can also support the production of immune proteins like secretory IgA and other peptides. And there are plenty of studies that show when you start taking zinc lozenges at the very first sign of feeling ill, that it really does help to shorten that duration of the cold. And it's okay to take zinc on a daily basis just to support your healthy immune function too. So I've talked about the secretory IgA complex. So what is it? I'm going to give you a little up close diagram of the mucous membranes of the intestine so we can kind of see how it works. It's an important factor to protect the mucous membranes. You can see this diagram here. The green spots are our intestinal cells, the reds are blood circulation, the yellow is our mucous membrane that you want to have intact, and then there's a small intestine. So the secretory IgA is transported through the cells in the lining of this membrane into the mucous lining there. And in the mucous lining, it binds to toxins and pathogens in the respiratory as well as the gastrointestinal tract. And that allows them to then be kind of excreted in that mucus. If you're coughing up something, you're coughing up mucus, right? You're getting that out of the body, you're clearing out pathogens and toxins. Same thing happens in the gut. And we actually, the secretory IgA is so important for the body that we actually produce between 3 to 5 grams of it in the intestine on a daily basis. And it's really important. It's found in things like tears, saliva, sweat, colostrum, secretions from the genital urinary tract, gastrointestinal tract, prostate, and the respiratory epithelium. So things to help support the production of this IgA are things you want to think about. Because low production of the secretory IgA is associated with a higher risk of infection in the gastrointestinal tract and the respiratory tract. So the good news is that probiotics and prebiotics have been shown to support healthy levels of IgA in the body. So what we talked about earlier can really benefit that. And vitamin A you want to think about. When you are deficient in vitamin A, that impairs your ability to produce IgA. So what's the best source of vitamin A? Anyone know? Well, you're not going to like this. It's liver. That's why we used to eat liver once a week, right? It's a harder one to find palatable, but you could cook liver and like dice it up and mix it in like hamburger meat or taco meat or put it in a meatloaf, the way I try to disguise it for my kiddos. And if you don't feel like you can eat liver, then you may consider a vitamin A supplement just a couple times a week just to boost your vitamin A. The kind of cool source of secretory IgA is cocoa flavonoids. Yes, chocolate. Chocolate powder, cocoa powder more so than chocolate bars. But the cocoa flavonoids have been shown to enhance IgA synthesis in the GI tract. So getting an organic, healthy cocoa powder and experimenting with some fun, healthy recipes can be good for your immune system. Although I'm not endorsing Hershey's chocolate or Halloween candy, the healthy cocoa powder is, you can make your own hot cocoa or make some a cocoa smoothie, some suggestions. So once our barriers are penetrated, then we have to make sure that our immune cells are functioning well enough that they can respond properly. So the function of our immune system then is determined by 2 outcomes: having healthy numbers, having enough immune cells to respond, and then having the immune cells be functioning the right way and to be able to respond. So basically having enough recruits to form a large enough army and having the troops properly trained and ready for combat. So in order for to support healthy immune function, we require adequate numbers of immune cells. The one major cause of low immune cell numbers is micronutrient deficiencies or protein energy malnutrition. The micronutrient deficiencies include things like zinc and selenium because they're critical cofactors for enzymes that are required for immune function. So those aren't like major nutrients that you think about, but if you are deficient in them, they can affect your immune function. And also, if you don't have enough immune cells, your lymphatic organs that are helpful for kind of storing them and producing them start to atrophy, like the thymus and the spleen. Those are 2 of our lymphatic organs that are important for the immune system. they actually start to kind of shrink up. But it is a pretty widespread problems in America to be overfed but undernourished. So we may be eating enough calories, but we are not getting enough nutrition. We're not getting enough of these micronutrients that we need to help support our health. Things like vitamin E, selenium, vitamin A, vitamin C, B6, zinc. It's estimated also that over 1 billion people are deficient in vitamin D worldwide. So that's another nutrient. A multivitamin can really go a long way in correcting these types of deficiencies. Also important for maintaining healthy immune cell numbers are B vitamins, and especially important for cell turnover in the immune system are B vitamins like B6, folate, and B12. And it's pretty critical because our immune cells do turn over pretty quickly. They're needed to make DNA synthesis and produce those immune cells. Studies also indicate that B vitamins are needed to present together to support optimal immune function, and a deficiency in any one of them can impair the ability of the body to produce new immune cells. So what's another indication where we're using up a lot of B vitamins? Holidays coming up, stress, stress of being around family, stress of buying all the things for the holidays. We use up our B vitamins very quickly under stress. So a good idea to add a B complex during the holiday season to boost your immune system and your ability to get through it all with enough energy. So there's other biochemical processes that are performed by immune cells that require B vitamins for functioning too. So let's talk about a couple of other nutrients that are key for immune health. I'm going to go through each one of them, but we'll talk about vitamin D, probiotics again, vitamin C, branched chain amino acids, and selenium. So besides helping with digestion and gut health, probiotics are important for immune cell production, as well as producing immunoregulatory metabolites and antibodies in the body. Our gut, where a lot of those probiotics do reside, about 60 to 70% of our immune system is located there in the gut. Rightly so, because we get a lot of maybe bad bacteria through the food that we're consuming, or things that we're swallowing or inhaling. So we do need to make sure we're having we have the good bugs in there to kind of help make sure that we're having a response against pathogens that we may be getting through food. Vitamin D is a superstar when it comes to immune health, and it has definitely been shining during the recent last 2 years. It does seem that vitamin D is, and the status of vitamin D in your body, having enough, seems to be one of the main determinants on how effective your immune response can be to major viral pathogens. So almost all immune cells express vitamin D receptors, so you can kind of see how important it can be in their function. There was a study done on school-age children, and it showed that when they took 1,200 IU of vitamin D daily, they had a less instance of upper respiratory tract infections. So vitamin D does play a central role in just proper immune function overall. It is required by our bodies to make a variety of germ-fighting factors, such as an important antimicrobial compound called cathelicidin. You want to get your vitamin D levels checked. If you go to your doctor and have some blood work at least once or twice a year to see where your blood levels are of vitamin D. They've looked at cultures where people are out in the sun most of the time without a ton of clothes, so near the equator, right? And they looked at their vitamin D levels, and they had anywhere from like 40 to 60 nanograms per deciliter. So that's kind of where they set that goal. If you're less than 40, you're deficient in vitamin D, so you want to boost that through probably supplementation. It's difficult to get enough vitamin D from food. And we can get vitamin D from the sun, right? It's the sunshine vitamin. But here in Colorado, we don't even get the UVB rays that we need coming in from November to February. So every other time of the year, spring, summertime, if you get out in the sun, you're going to be able to make some extra vitamin D. But right now is kind of our vitamin D winter, where even if you get out, go hiking, you exposing a little bit of skin, you're not going to be able to make vitamin D like you did in the summertime. So if you're someone that's really active and likes to get outside, you still probably want to supplement in the wintertime in Colorado to make sure that your body is maintaining a high level of vitamin D. And then vitamin C is the next kind of powerhouse vitamin for the immune system. Since free radicals suppress healthy immune development, vitamin C working as an antioxidant is really important to have on board and have enough in the body. And many of vitamin C's immune supportive effects are attributed to that antioxidant function. It's also needed when we're under stress to maintain collagen and the structure of the healthy barriers of the skin and the respiratory tract. Vitamin C can be severely depleted by stress and illness, as well as inflammation. So that's when you want to kind of boost up in times of stress. And vitamin C is actually required for immune cell functions, including white blood cells and natural killer cells. We need vitamin C for it to function properly. And vitamin C, as well as glucose, so when we eat sugar or we eat simple carbohydrates, they break down into glucose in the body. The same receptor sites for glucose, or absorption sites for glucose, vitamin C also goes through that same site. So the more sugar you eat, it makes it harder for immune cells to take up vitamin C. And this is something that is good to know, that even just a teaspoon of sugar can suppress your white blood cell function for up to 3 or 4 hours after consuming it, partly because of this effect on vitamin C. All right, another one I'm going to talk about is branched chain amino acids. So when we eat protein, there's building blocks to that protein. Those are the amino acids that make up bigger proteins. Once they break down, those single amino acids do have functions in the body. There's certain amino acids that become conditionally essential when we're under stress, or maybe have gone through trauma or surgery, or even with athletes, they put their bodies to the test, right? They do train very hard, and so they're adding that extra stress to their body. So their body actually requires higher amounts of these certain amino acids called branched chain amino acids. They include leucine, isoleucine, and valine. They're important for recovery from sports or surgery or trauma, gut health. So there's a lot of reasons you would need to add these in, but they can't, when you add in branched chain amino acids, it helps to reduce the effects of that physiological stress. So athletes often, after they train for the big race, they get through it, they might get sick after the race, or they might get sick while they're training because of the drain on their immune system. So adding these branched chain amino acids are really helpful. Plus they help to maintain a muscle mass too. So it's important for when you're exercising to repair muscles using branched chain amino acids. And then selenium is the next one I'm going to talk about. Selenium deficiency severely decreases the ability of the immune cells to function properly. And studies have shown that selenium deficiency actually allows viruses to become stronger, essentially. So do your friend or neighbor a favor and make sure you're getting enough selenium so you don't pass on some sort of more virulent virus to them. So selenium you can get in a supplement. It has a narrow range, anywhere from like 200 to 300 micrograms is kind of that narrow range for supplementing. If you like Brazil nuts, you can eat 3 to 4 Brazil nuts a day, and that will give you your daily dose of selenium. Medicinal mushrooms like reishi, shiitake, turkey tail, these mushrooms are amazing for immune function. You can take them daily to really kind of fine tune your immune response, or they can be taken when you come down with something to optimize your immune response. So they help the immune system to not overreact, which can result in autoimmune disease, or not underreact so that you don't get over the cold. So one study even found that white button mushrooms produced a increased production of secretory IgA that we talked about earlier. So even eating mushrooms in your diet, but you do have to cook them. Raw mushrooms are fine, but the beta glucans and the active ingredients in mushrooms are not activated unless they're cooked. So it's best to cook your mushrooms. Saute them, a little bit of butter and garlic, or add them to soups. So one of the things that they have researched and found that is beneficial in mushrooms is with the beta glucans or alpha glucans. There's a lot of other compounds in mushrooms. They're actually pretty fascinating. They've got vitamins and minerals, fatty acids, other compounds in them that actually help with immune function. But a lot of research focuses on this beta glucans, and it has been shown that it helps to balance the immune system. So these beta glucans are kind of a series of cell compounds. They're like a polysaccharide, basically. So polysaccharides are carbohydrates that are stuck together in chains. But these beta glucans do modulate immune function, especially as far as studies go. They've looked at it within the first 1 to 5 days of immune response. So adding in mushrooms when you do get sick, good thing to have on board. There's really other cool nutrient or research looking at beta glucans and found that it can improve and balance your reaction towards maybe foods or airborne irritants like with seasonal allergies. So mushrooms might be good to take just kind of year round, also for seasonal allergy support. So after our immune system has killed the bad guys, we want a quick resolution, right, of all the inflammation that gets produced. So there's supplements that can support the resolution phase of the immune system so we can feel better quicker and get back to what we were wanting to do to enrich our lives, right? So I looked to nutrients that help modulate that inflammation. Omega-3 from fish oil is kind of one of those first things I reach for. Omega-3 fats provide EPA and DHA. Those fatty acids help to modulate inflammation in the gut, in the brain, all throughout the body. Turmeric and curcumin, which is one of the active ingredients in turmeric, can support a resolution phase in the immune response too. So it's a good one to add in if you're kind of struggling with feeling better. Probiotics too, if you hadn't been taking probiotics before, good time to make sure you're adding those back in. That can support a balanced immune or inflammatory response throughout the body. And then vitamin D also can kind of come in here too, because it helps to prevent immune cells from being overreactive and causing too much inflammation. So what can we do for long-term support for our immune system? Well, first and foremost, having excellent nutrition on a daily basis can support immune function. So avoiding foods that we know can really disrupt our immune system, highly processed foods, too much sugar, inflammatory oils, and then adding in more fruits and vegetables, eating whole foods, getting enough protein, using healthy fats. This can help to avoid nutrition deficiency, and that's important to help maintain a healthy immune system. So we need critical nutrients on a daily basis, like vitamin A and vitamin C, selenium and zinc, B vitamins, probiotics, vitamin D, and healthy fats. And we really won't get these unless we eat like a variety of brightly colored fruits and vegetables, right, to get all of our vitamins and minerals, and make sure we're getting enough protein in our diet. A lot of B vitamins come from fruits and vegetables, but their best sources may be more from animal protein. And so last month, oh, sorry. And then just some other 2 nutrients that, in addition to diet, I wanted to highlight really quickly before we moved on. These have been 2 pretty top supplements in the store as far as people coming and asking for them: N-acetylcysteine and quercetin. So these are nutrients that you can use on a daily basis in cold and flu season, or like if you do get sick. So it can be long-term or acute. But N-acetylcysteine is an amino acid that helps to supply the body with glutathione. Glutathione is an antioxidant that helps to support the function of the respiratory tract and helps to detoxify in cells, including respiratory tract. And NAC also helps to break up mucus in the lungs. So there's studies showing that taking NAC can really help people get over a cold and flu, and that can help improve respiratory function. And quercetin is a funny one to say, but it naturally, you can get quercetin fruits and vegetables. Onions, apples are a great source of quercetin. A lot of your like deeply colored vegetables and fruits, elderberry, people are taking elderberry extract actually has quercetin in it, but you can take it in a supplement. And quercetin is a flavonoid that actually has direct viral modulation, and it works as a balancer of the inflammatory response, and it really helps to support your immune system too. So those are two nutrients that are definitely worthwhile adding in on a daily basis or when you get sick. So when you do get sick, what are some things to grab and make sure that you have on hand? Mushrooms, because they do provide that acute immune support. Mushrooms like shiitake, maitake, reishi mushroom, and then turkey tail. That's a picture of turkey tail right there. That's one of the immune mushrooms that are usually really specialized for immune support, along with agarikon. We sell agarikon too. Vitamin D, like I mentioned earlier, we kind of want to make sure we get enough vitamin D, especially in the winter months. It's harder to get from the sun, and so that's one of the reasons vitamin D status does often decrease in the winter if we're not supplementing. And it is kind of coinciding that cold and flu does increase in the winter months, so make sure that you're getting enough vitamin D. And if you're traveling, probiotics and prebiotics are a good thing to take with you. We do carry travel probiotics so that they don't have to be kept in the fridge. Great thing to throw in your suitcase or your purse when you're traveling, because they do support the health of our immune system and our gastrointestinal barrier. Zinc lozenge are a good thing to have at the first sign of a cold, because they do help with hopefully decreasing the duration of cold symptoms. All right, well, I hope I gave you a couple ideas of nutrients to really have in your immune system toolbox, but overall, supporting the health of your body is like key, right? We want to make sure we're getting enough sleep, we're managing stress, and eating a healthy diet on a daily basis so we don't have to backtrack. I think these last 2 years have really taught a lot of people that they need to get back to that. They need to get back to health and eating healthier and making that a priority. So these are some books that you might look at if you want to have more information on immune health. If you want to look up specific nutrients, the Encyclopedia of Nutritional Supplements is a good one for looking them up and finding out how they function in the body, maybe how much is recommended, how much you should take. And this is a good book too about it's called The Immunity Fix by James DiNicolantino. He really hones in on what we can do to strengthen our immune system and fight off infections through diet as well as supplements. I touched a tiny bit on autoimmune conditions and what can contribute to it, but Dr. Terry Wahls, you can see this book here, is called The Wahls Protocol. Dr. Terry Wahls is a medical doctor that had a pretty debilitating case of MS, but she has made huge changes in her diet, and this book is all about the things that she did, supplements that she took that really helped her to be able to function again. She was debilitated in a wheelchair, and now she can ride a bike, and she works and walks, and so it's really kind of amazing to see how far she's come. And she recommends eating 6 to 7 cups of vegetables a day. which sounds kind of impossible, but it's actually easier than you think. She also lists some key nutrients that she used to support her body in recovering and balancing her immune system. So, and I'm going to open it up for any questions that people may have on the presentation or any other resources that you may be interested in.